Okay, great. And for those that attended the first session with Gurbash, when he talked about VCs not really knowing, not adding value because they don't really know business, they just have a degree from a fancy university. One thing you want to look at when you get money is what they call smart money that could help, and having someone with that kind of operational background is quite helpful. So let me start. I'll ask a few questions, and then if anybody would like to tweet a question in, if you just send it to @PaceELab, and if you don't have a program, we'll be glad to distribute some that has the URL, the Twitter handle, as well as everybody's names. And then I'll read from them, and we will open it up as well. But let me start with Craig, as you're one of the newest companies that doesn't have. I don't believe you have any commercial sales yet, correct?
No, we're still just building out the first shipping product.
Good. Good. So I wanted to not good. So I meant good that I'm not mistaken. I hate for you to say no. We've sold a lot, but I wanted to start with the earlier stage business. Looking ahead, what do you see as some of your biggest challenges to get traction? To get the product out the door, revenue in the door, et cetera.
Yeah. So I'd say in our case, to understand the challenges, I need to say just a little bit more about our business. So we're building a product that we're going to be selling direct to end users, direct to consumers on one end, and also to high-value content providers like Bloomberg, like Pearson Publishing, and places like that on the other end. Both of these groups have really unique challenges. If you try selling something to companies like Bloomberg, Pearson, McGraw-Hill, Macmillan, you may as well just jump out a window. I mean, it's almost impossible. These companies, if you're a startup trying to sell things to existing businesses, and I'm sure everyone else at the table has probably seen this, I'm sure you have, especially with furniture, it's really hard to sell things to large, bureaucratic, slow-moving companies. The sales cycles take forever. The amount of networking you have to do just to get in front of the relevant people is actually a major challenge right there. Now, on the other side, in terms of selling to consumers, in some ways, that's easier, right? In some ways, it's not that hard to get something really exciting to start getting traction from consumers, but actually making money off of those consumers is very challenging. It's almost like it's easy to get consumer users, it's hard to monetize them. And so figuring out how do we make money off of these people, if our early tests are right and people really do adopt it, there's a lot of big challenges there, especially in terms of market saturation. Our main product for consumers is going to be an app, and even though our app is unique and wonderful and special and amazing, the market is saturating really quickly, and even taking something special and making it stand out raises a lot of very serious marketing challenges.
Okay, and that'll one thing about being an entrepreneur is that persistence. Taking no and following up, and trying to get your foot in the door and get that appointment to make your case. So I moved on to David. What surprised you most about the growth this past year? So Craig is just starting the program. You started last year. Phenomenal growth. Congratulations. We're all proud, waving the base flag for us. What surprised you the most about that growth?
The most surprising thing, I would say, is, it's execution's everything. And obviously, when you're going out there to build a product, you can have the best idea in the world, but the execution is going to be everything. And what we've learned through time is to execute, you need a great team. So during this rapid growth, obviously we had a team to start out, and you constantly keep building that team, and you take away certain parts and you add certain parts. So the biggest surprise was just really when we were sitting there and we're like, all right, well, here's our formula, here's what we have to be doing. Is our team capable enough to do it? If not, do we need to get rid of people? And obviously, it's never an easy thing to do. It's just really the little things all coming together. And the biggest surprise is that, we were a bunch of young guys that most of the people on our team don't have experience in the media world, journalism world. So for us, it was surprising to ourselves that we were able to pull something off of this nature by just working hard and, executing. And that's really what it comes down to, execution.
So executing, doing it, ideas are a dime a dozen. Making it happen is what's hard. So, I'd suggest not, being too worried about protecting your idea, but get out there and make it happen. And just, I really didn't introduce my background. Aside from being a professor, I'm not a traditional academic. I started a couple companies, a online financial services company back in the 90s, .com boom, and a traditional company, Annapolis Maritime Corp. In Annapolis. Started my career after Pace. I studied actually Japanese here at Pace and started at Bank of Tokyo and then an Australian bank, and went on to work for a high-tech startup company as an international product manager in 26 countries, and did a bunch of other stuff, took off and went sailing for a few years. So I have an academic background to a degree, but more of an entrepreneurial background. Good. Carlos, you've seen the operational side, and you've been in management consulting and have a technical background. When you are looking at at companies and they come to pitch for funding, I know it's a very broad question, but what are some of the key things that you look for that get your attention, both on the plus side, like this is good, and on the negative side, here's some red flags, I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole?
Okay, that's an excellent question. It depends. Well, first of all, I'm going to preface this by saying that every investor has its own criteria. So you're going to hear different versions as to what they look for. What we look for specifically are, we have so many members that each one of them has a different background, and each one of them is going to be looking probably at different things. But in general, if I'm going to summarize this, David here mentioned execution is everything, so that speaks of the management team. We want to see a management team that's, hopefully top-notch. Hopefully they've done it before. If they had some previous exits, that means they sold the company, with great returns for everybody. That's even better. It is most often wishful thinking because most entrepreneurs don't have that experience, but so it's management team. Then the idea has to be solving a critical problem in their target segment. So it can be a Me Too product. It has to be something that's so unique, hopefully disruptive. It's going to change everything around, which is going to give them an opportunity to succeed. Then it has to be in a large enough market so that if they don't capture a large enough market share over the years, if the market is big, there are still some significant revenues that are being generated, which drive the valuation of the company for exit. The last thing is it has to be an idea that it has enough sufficient barriers to entry. That means it could be brilliant, it could be disruptive, but if it's something that can be copied or emulated very quickly by, let's say, a larger competitor, they will lose that advantage and they'll be out of business. So high barriers to entry, I would say, would be the last general criteria that we look at. And this is probably very generic. It applies to almost every sector. Every sector has its own nuances and tweaks to that criteria, but that's, I would say, overall, that would be what we look for.
What are a couple of things that you would just, when a red flag that you'd say, I don't want to touch this deal or this entrepreneur, with a 10-foot pole? Or there's some broad things, like sometimes, if a person, like, this is my business and I'm going to own it and I'm going to be CEOs, that gets people nervous, or unpaid taxes, or
Right. Well, that's an excellent question, because since during the initial meetings we don't know enough about the business. The entrepreneur always knows more about the business than the investor does, okay, because it's their business. We try to learn as fast as possible, and personally I only invest in things where I understand fully and where I can add value. Angels and VCs are active investors, so we don't just want to give them money and then call them up 5 years later and say, how you doing, can we have an exit? We normally in Golden Seeds take a board seat if we were the primary investors, and we shepherd the company through the process. Now, going back to the red flags, okay, I guess that would be one. If the entrepreneur wants to create a lifestyle business, that means a business that they're gonna have like a job. They're gonna retire and they have no intention of growing the company, exponentially, and they're not discussing the possibility of an exit. Then that's a red flag. The only way we get our money back is through the exit or some sort of a process, whether that's a sale of the company or an IPO. So that's important for us. What else? If the entrepreneur is not coachable, let's say he's not strong in all areas, and nobody is. I mean, we know. So during the interaction, we may see a need for bringing somebody else on board to help him out, as COO or CTO, whatever, depending on his weakness. And if he's not open to that possibility, that's another red flag. If the idea is easy to copy, low barriers to entry, that we probably won't even look at it. We're looking in general at something that will generate about 10 times return over, let's say, 5 years as a reference. That comes to, if you do the math, about 60% IRR, right? And then you say, well, that's a great return. But if you multiply by the probability of success, I mean, let's say 1 out of 5 will be successful. That's about a 12% return. You can do that in putting your money in the S&P 500. So we're not making a lot of money. I mean, as investors, we're just doing this mostly because we enjoy the being part of this exciting new opportunities here, and we like to play along with them. So
Yeah, live vicariously through the entrepreneur.
that's correct. Yeah.